Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are so excited to have you as part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. 2019 is the year we are all resolving to spend more time reading with our kids and also spend more time reading ourselves. We have a fantastic book to introduce you to today. The author of Surprise, I Have Three Eyes is here. Her name is Jenine Lori. We would be so very, very happy if you would visit readingwithyourkids.com/yummy. readingwithyourkids.com/yummy. Go there and find out about the easiest way to snack smart and do good. We're talking about Love with Food. Love with Food helps you discover new, organic, all-natural, and gluten-free snacks delivered directly to your door every single month. And membership starts as low as $7.99 a month. And this is why we love with Food so much. Love with Food will donate a portion of the proceeds to help fight childhood hunger in the U.S. and all around the world. Love with Food donates to organizations like Feeding America and the Global Food Banking Network. So join us to help end childhood hunger one meal at a time. Visit readingwithyourkids.com/yummy to say goodbye to boring grocery store selections and to start snacking smart and doing good with Love with Food. Joining us on the line right now from beautiful Orange County in California, she is the author of a delightful book called Surprise, I Have Three Eyes. Please welcome to the show, Jenine Lori. Jenine, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
I'm loving that your book, that you're here to talk about your book. And I guess the first thing that most people would ask is, who has three eyes? What are we talking about here?
We all have three eyes. And really, this is touching on the idea of our inner vision, of our inner world, and something that we see that goes far beyond the physical. So really tapping into that creative side and that imagination.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm a creative guy and I write books. But I'm not familiar with that concept of a third eye. So help me understand that a little bit better.
Well, really for me, as a young child, and this is kind of where it started, I was always an extremely creative child. I had a wild imagination. I would be in my room alone for hours, searching for the secret doorways, the magical kingdoms, looking for pixies, fairies, unicorns. And when I first went to school, I really took to the visual arts because it was just such a great way for me to connect to that creative energy. And I always found that this is where I found my inspiration. And I had these wild, vivid visions, and they weren't what I would normally see in the physical. So it really is, the third eye is touching in that place where we see beyond what we see with the physical. You know, the creative inspiration of where our imagination really runs wild. So the third eye is an expression of that, of our inner vision and our inner world and that magical reality.
Well, that's something I certainly can relate to, and certainly can relate to going to school and having those visions, especially in math class, I think. But, the reason I asked and the reason I wanted you to explain it a little bit more before we talk specifically about, your book is that I think sometimes when people hear an expression like, oh, we all have a third eye, they might sit down and go, oh, this is some woo-woo stuff. Time for me to tap out of here. But I don't think that's, this idea shouldn't be scaring anybody off. It is something. We all have a creative aspect to ourselves. We all have that ability to kind of close our eyes and to see and to create worlds that we can actually see and feel within our mind and within our creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel that this is really just giving an expression for our inner world, our creativity, our imagination, and really giving the world an ability to see that it is an extra sense that we have to be able to tap into that, that the fantasy world is for all of us to enjoy and experience, and it's a magical place and one that we should absolutely embrace.
I agree, and when we think of creativity too, we're not just thinking about creating fantastic worlds, but that creativity is where some of our greatest inventions and some of our greatest discoveries come from. It's, that it's the artist sitting down and thinking, what if? It's the writer sitting down thinking, what if? It's the scientist sitting down and thinking, what if we use this in a completely different way? What will happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that this is really a big inspiration for me with writing the book, as well as being an artist, that I always was tapping into that side. I was always thinking differently. Mm-hmm. And I went on to become an art teacher, and some of my students, they would struggle. We were talking about math. They were struggling in their academic classes, but they were doing fantastic things in my art classes. And I went on to hear from them years later, and these were always the ones that were doing the most innovative, creative things with their life. I mean, things that we use on a daily basis, these tools, and it's amazing. And they were able to tap into this place, where they were seeing the world differently. They were able to see things differently. And I think that any creative and any artist can say that we really do tap into that space. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that is what the book is sharing, is this inner reality that we have, this inner vision, mm-hmm. that if we just embrace that, we can have innovative ideas that take us very far.
Yeah. So let's talk about the book and the story that we'll find in Surprise, I Have Three Eyes.
So tapping into the inner vision, Surprise, I Have Three Eyes begins with a quote from Jonathan Swift. Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. And this quote really sums up one of the most important messages in the book, which is that our vision cannot be seen openly by others. It's truly for us, and it comes from a place within us. Everything that we see is our own unique reality of our own perception of what we see. And this quote really does a fantastic way of introducing the concept of the book. And the third eye, which we discuss in the book, is actually an expression of our inner vision, which stems far beyond what we can see in the physical. The main character in the story, Joey, goes out every day and plays with his magical friends, all kinds of elaborate creatures, unicorns, fairies, talking trees, talking flowers. And these friends are by his side all of the time. And one day, his school friends tell Joey that his magical friends are pretend. And Joey becomes very confused by this. He just doesn't understand. So he goes home and talks to the magical friends and asks them if they're pretend. And Troll, one of the main characters in the book, speaks on behalf of the Enchanted Forest and shares that they come from a place called his third eye. He says, "We are just as real as you may believe. It's all just a matter of how you perceive." Of course, Joey doesn't understand this, as he's been taught, I only have two eyes. So he asks Troll if his third eye is a surprise. Troll then goes on to teach Joey how to connect to his third eye and shares the magic of seeing from this special place, and also gives him the confidence to realize that his school friends may not see them, but this is okay, that he can still see the world differently and play and enjoy just the same.
I love this for a lot of different reasons, and not just for, encouraging creativity. Because one of the things we've talked about a lot recently on the show is how important it is for us to understand, and also to help our kids understand, that we don't all look at the world in the same way. We all come from different perspectives and different points of view, and that shapes the way that we react, to certain situations and stresses and moments in our life. And I think when we accept that, when our kids understand that, it can help us to have more empathy with other people and help us get along and develop friendships better with other people.
Absolutely. And this is one of the main concepts that I hope the book is able to express. I remember being a young girl and wondering, how is it that do we see green as the same green? How do I ever know? You might see green as I see blue. And I remember pondering over that for hours, wondering, how does anybody see the way that I see? Do I really know how that person sees? And this is so important for us to understand. It does build empathy for others, and self-acceptance. And, we could really relate to other people differently when we see that maybe we all have that different way of viewing reality in our own unique way. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, and I think the other thing that it does too is, I think it kind of encourages our kids to be curious about others and to not only accept, well, that person sees things differently than me, but actually encourages them to say, okay, well, let's discover how they see differently than me and see if that person will invite me into their world and see if I can invite that person into my world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it begins to allow us to engage in learning, because we're wondering, well, you start to think a little bit, well, maybe I didn't know that. Maybe I didn't think about seeing it that way. And you start looking and seeing the world a little bit differently than you saw it yesterday. And it's thought provoking, which is nice. We want that.
Absolutely. One of we were talking earlier about, creativity. It's not just for painters and artists and musicians and writers, but it's something that's important in all aspects of our life. Do you have any way for a parent of a kid who is, they're the kids who love the STEM fields, the scientists, the engineers, the technologists, how we as parents can encourage those kids who are, thinking in that way to kind of tap into their creative mind and to think, what, I know how this tablet works, but what else can I do with it?
Yeah, I think what's so fantastic, and this also goes back to being a teacher, was that I was able to see that we all are so unique in the way that we tap into this energy, the way that we tap into this, our way of seeing, and it's just a different expression of that. So when we have, the students that are really engaging in the sciences, they're able to use that energy and focus on that in a way that brings them joy. They can see this in their reality differently than somebody who I'm a visual artist. I know many people who are musicians. I know many people, I consider, computer science and art as well, a creative expression. My mind doesn't think that way. But I think the way it is for us to be able to, tap into that expression of our uniqueness and find those nuggets and apply it to our world, and just always be open to what is coming to us. I do a lot of visual techniques where I will have people close their eyes, and just allow, more of like a meditation, just allow the world to come to them in their own expression, and don't try to be anything but where you are in that moment. Don't try to, think like a scientist or think like an artist, but just be in that expression of your own uniqueness. And I find that really opens up the children, when I'm working with them, and they kind of come back and I do some creative activities with them. And the ones that you wouldn't think would be so expressive artistically are fantastic. They blow my mind when I see what comes out of them. So we really all do have the ability to tap into this place. It's just a matter of finding it.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I was thinking too about how important it is for us to encourage our kids to kind of use that creativity when we're reading, and to try to visualize what we're reading. There's so many studies that demonstrate that when kids read vividly, when they are able to visualize what they're reading and not just going through the pages, that their comprehension is so much greater, and they do so much better when they're reading something and they have to be tested on whatever. It really improves their comprehension.
Yeah, and I think part of it, and going back to the book, it's very organic the way it's written. It just has something to open you up on every page, lots of magical creatures and bright, vivid colors, and the words are very rhythmic and flowing. And it just gives a little bit of a break and the kids are able to really look into that and see differently. And I think that when the kids are doing that, they're able to take a break and stop and enjoy the experience and not be so focused on an outcome, but allow it to just be different and unique for them and their own perception of what's happening.
Wow. What kind of reaction have you had from kids and from parents who have read Surprise, I Have Three Eyes?
Well, so far the book is really having a fantastic impact. It's been wonderful. It's been a great surprise for me. I've had, parents send me videos of their children opening up the book for the first time, and they're just so excited. It's just very elaborate and this magical, beautiful, whimsical, creative world. And they just, I wanted the book to really, every page to be a unique experience for them where they were searching for something different, and they see something different each time. And the visuals are what seems to be making a really huge statement. The kids seem to love the artwork and the creativity that was put into the book. And what I love is hearing from them, and it's fantastic to hear what they say about all the different creatures and creative little, expressions that are on each page in the book. So mostly it seems like the children, it's turning into a favorite. They're reading it every night over and over again. And that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. Well, the illustrations are amazing. I mean, it is, the adjectives you use, bright and alive and vibrant. They really are. The illustrations really are absolutely captivating. And I just love them. For you as an author and illustrator, what came first, the illustrations and the images, or the text and the story?
So the text and the story did come first. And I looked at this as an entire art piece from cover to cover. Everything was placed just as I wanted it to. The images, for me, it took me a little bit more time to come up with the right way to express what was in the writing of the text of the story. And what I wanted ideally was for the book to be an expression of our inner world, of a child's inner universe, of what may be happening when you tap into that imagination that we don't always see. Mm-hmm. And the idea of, the main character, Joey, is in his room sick, but yet there's all these amazing characters and creatures around him. He has a pet unicorn, and I wanted that to be that, he's walking around and he has this elaborate, fantastic imagination, and this is the way he's viewing the world. And I wanted people to see that opening up the book, and it gets more elaborate and fantastic as you flip the pages. It just keeps going and going. Mm-hmm. And my favorite books as a child, and this was what I wanted as well, were the ones where, I looked forward to looking in the pictures and seeing the things I didn't see before. And it was always just new every time I opened up the book. So I wanted this not just to be a read that, somebody read and they just put it down on their shelf, but they look forward to, I want to read that book and maybe I see something new this time. Mm-hmm. So that's really where the visuals came from.
Mm-hmm. This is a crazy thought, and if it's a crazy question, I apologize, but wouldn't it be cool for the kids who kind of naturally can think like this and, kind of sit down and imagine all this wonder and amazement going on around them? I'm wondering if there's a way that as a parent and a child read Surprise, I Have Three Eyes together, if there's a way for kids to encourage their parents to kind of tap into that again and to, really experience what a joy it is to kind of go there and to see all that wonder in our mind's eyes and all that creativity.
Yeah, it's fantastic that you're bringing this up because, originally I love my work and I love doing this, but originally I actually sat down and was writing a book for adults. And it just wasn't flowing. It wasn't coming out right. And I thought, I'm meant to write this for children. But when that came, I realized, when I do this, it's not just for children. This is for everybody. Mm-hmm. And some of the most fantastic experiences I've had have been with sharing this book with the parents and with the adults. And I actually had someone just last week who was buying this book for her granddaughter, and she opened it up and she looked at it and she started crying. And she said, this book, I can't begin to tell you, I need this. I need this right now. And it's touching the parents who are looking at it, the adults. We all have this place within us. And for me, especially as a creative, there was a point where I was turning off my imagination. I became so focused on my studies, on work, on all of those things that I wasn't looking at that anymore. Mm-hmm. And for those of us that shut that off, that could be devastating. Mm-hmm. So to continue to engage in that side of life, it's liberating and it's fantastic. It's not just for children. Mm-hmm. So being able to see that adults are getting into that with the book, and when they read to their children, they're benefiting from that as well. So
yeah, as you were speaking, we were talking about adults and we were talking about kids. The thought that flashed into my mind, that what came to my third eye, was how helpful this could be for a high school senior to sit down as they're being inundated with SATs and college applications and loans and what am I going to do with the rest of my life, and just for them to kind of sit down and re-tap into that wonder and joy that we had when we were kids, and just to remind them that they're not that far away from it and to hold on to it for the rest of their lives.
Yes, and exactly what you said. That is my hope for this book. That is my hope, that this book does that for everybody that reads it. And that was me. That was me as growing up. That's me sometimes in daily life. We get so overwhelmed and inundated with, tasks that we're doing. And, what brings me the most immense joy in my life is that space where I realize that anything is possible, that the world is just abundantly limitless, and that, not to say fantasy, but that energy that I had when I was a child, that magic where I would go out and play out in the forest, and I would be looking for pixies and unicorns, that doesn't have to go away, that is still a space within me. And it brought me such joy. It was a space that liberated me, that made me feel, that the world was a playground. And I think that, we're really gifting our children if we help them to hold on to that through their young adulthood, as teenagers, moving on to adults. They're going to be fantastic parents. And what an amazing world if we're able to hold on to that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know folks are going to want to know more about the book. I know the book, Surprise I Have Three Eyes, is available on Amazon. Are there other places online where folks can connect with you and find out a little bit more about what's going on in your creative world?
Yeah, so the book is also available on Barnes & Noble. I do have a website, so it's going to be at JanineLori.com as well as JanineLori.store. I have all of my art prints from the book are also available for purchase, so those who love the artwork and want to have some of that magic hanging on your wall, that's accessible and available as well. And, I do have other projects in the works. For me, Surprise I Have Three Eyes is really the beginning of, what we touched on, which is inspiring everyone, not just children, to hold on to that, that energy within them and believe that the world is a magical place and, infuse that into their daily life. So other books as well are going to be, part of this process to help bring this creative, imaginative inspiration into our lives.
Well, we're so happy that you had a chance to tell us a little bit about Surprise I Have Three Eyes and talk about creativity and being open to that vision that each and every one of us have and each and every one of us can use no matter what we're doing in life. Jenine, I've had a blast speaking to you today. I would love for you to come back when your new projects are ready.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to as well. I'm really excited to be here. And, I'm excited to hear more about what's going on with your show. It's wonderful. I love how you're engaging children to read, and that's really what we want. There's all these amazing ways to help these kids tap into the, the beautiful expressions of what they're becoming and who they already are.
Absolutely. So. Our guest today has been Jenine Lori. Check out her book, Surprise, I Have Three Eyes, and check out her website, JanineLori.com. Jenine, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be the author of Dog Science Unleashed, Judy Wheeler-Toppin. It's going to be a great show. Don't you miss it. Hey, if you are the author of a great children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it is absolutely free. It gives you an opportunity to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. Really, really is easy. All you have to do is visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button. Let us know all about your great book. We will let you know the easy ways to get it on the show. Hey, we would love to thank our guest today, Jenine Lori. Make sure you check out her book, Surprise, I Have Three Eyes. We also want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.